So, folks, we are about to embark on a bit of a content voyage. And we're going to be looking tonight at a conversation between two people I hold nothing but contempt for. One is Balaji Srinivasan. And if you know anything about Balaji, you will know that one, he's incredibly wealthy. He worked high up in Coinbase for a while and made a fortune, and now spends his days running essentially monetary funds for a series of investment cities that he calls freedom cities or network states. And in fact, he calls them network states because he wrote the book The Network State, in which he envisions that essentially the ideal form of government is a form of benevolent techno-feudalism, where the tech bros and tech oligarchs of the world carve out their own individual city-states and lead them to greatness. And, you know, a really good example of kind of where he gets a lot of his ideas from can be taken from this article from the New York Times titled "The For-Profit City That Might Come Crashing Down." It's all about the for-profit city Prospera, which is founded off the coast of Honduras on a small island. To spare you some time going through it, there is a really interesting part where Balaji Srinivasan contributes. Yes, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is also in on this entire scheme to create essentially Ayn Randian cities, or if any of you have played the video game BioShock, they want to all create their own little raptures, where, you know, they can have the best and the brightest and then rule over them with an iron fist, essentially. And it's pretty disgusting stuff. And Balaji Srinivasan, in his book, The Network State, is pretty explicit that this is going to be a fascistic type of governance. He talks about essentially eliminating the people who are in favor of democracy by buying out the police and then arming said police with the techno gadgets that the tech bros make, and then weaponizing it against the folks who believe in democracy. He also writes a little bit in that book something pretty interesting that is observed in this article. Srinivasan, the former Coinbase chief technology officer and now an advisor to Pronomos Capital, Friedman, not Milton Friedman, actually, because again, all of these people are incestuous and highly connected with all the other rich people in the world, because capital finds a way to create class consciousness among the billionaire class. But Milton Friedman's grandson is intimately tied up with this entire economic endeavor from these billionaires, just to kind of let you know where this is kind of all going here. Friedman's fund to build startup cities argued in his book, in his 2022 book, this is Srinivasan now, The Network State, that these new business-friendly hubs would soon compete with nation-states and one day replace them. The network state was inspired, he said, by the state of Israel. Quote, "That country was started by a book," he tweeted in 2022, referring to Theodor Herzl's 1896 manifesto, The Jewish State. Quote, "You can found a tribe," Srinivasan said on a podcast. "What I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, when a community forms online, then gathers in physical space to form a reverse diaspora." So, yeah, that's essentially what Balaji Srinivasan is working towards, okay? He's essentially looking at Israel's, settler Zionism and saying, let's do that, but for tech Nazis. And, well, he is now backed by the richest people on the planet, and they are, in fact, going forward with a lot of these plans. It's bad. But we're going to focus on an aspect of this that I think needs to be addressed and is going to be particularly silly, you know? Specifically, the fact that Balaji Srinivasan, he's kind of captured the corporate billionaire class, but he's really looking for recruitment of young, out of touch, easily swayed MAGA people. That's essentially what is happening. Sounds a bit like a rug pull operation. One would think it is a rug pull operation, except that everyone involved is very sincere about this idea. So, who do you go to when you want to recruit a bunch of fascist-friendly, highly conservative, highly influenceable dinguses to do your evil bidding to bring about tech fascism? Well, you obviously reach out to someone who has a large and young audience that is easily influenceable to your techno-fascism, right? So, who might be a character that we've covered in the past that has a large, very young audience that Balaji Srinivasan wants to recruit and can recruit without looking like he's directly appealing to Nazis? That's right, folks. Here we go. We're diving into it. Balaji Srinivasan got the one, the only What If Alt-hist to go on his podcast and talk to him about alchemy for some reason. And you know what? Let's dive into it.
On a popular YouTube channel called What If Alt-hist. Maybe you can give a little bit to the audience on your background, kind of stuff you've done, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. And I'm Rudyard Lynch. I run the YouTube channel What If Alt-hist.
By the way, remember when we thought it was really weird that this guy started suddenly talking about alchemy out of nowhere? Yeah, it was after this appearance on this show where he talked about alchemy.
And we cover topics like history, anthropology, philosophy, and politics, just different elements of the human condition. And I like to say that the underlying causal...
Well, again, it's not foresight on my part to recognize that this guy is highly connected. He, one, talks about his connections all the time, and two, is part of several different, very far-right, Gen Z, conservative incubator, think tanks. He's being groomed and set up to be one of these major far-right figures.
The thing beneath it is human nature, and trying to figure out human nature in different contexts. And I started the channel when I was 13, doing something called alternate history, like what if the South won the Civil War? What if the Nazis won World War II? And we gradually pivoted out of that, where I feel very blessed, and I never thought this would be my life, where we have 700,000 subscribers and millions of viewers a month. And yeah, I'm happy it worked out.
There's actually, you're probably aware of this, there's an old Marvel comic series called What If. Do you know that?
No, I don't. I don't read Marvel.
Oh, Marvel What If? You mean that thing that they've made several animated series about on Disney Plus at this point? Huh. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, okay. That's funny. I thought that was actually an inspiration. This is, now today, Marvel Comics, because of the stupid, all the superhero movies endlessly, are not what they were. But when I was a kid, there was you could go, if you didn't know this, just like a small little thing, there was a comic book series called What If that had this exact premise. Like if some canonical event hadn't happened, what if Superman...
Like, what fascinates me are all of these guys that are pushing, like, far-right techno-fascism are like, I love reading the Avengers. And it's like, bitch, the Avengers would beat your ass. You're the evil one in their storyline. Come on, stop it. Like, I understand. Like, it would be fine to make this reference if you were, like, anything other than just, like, overtly evil, You're building a movement, a colonial movement online so that you can prop up like tech bros as god kings. It's fucking insane.
Man was powered up by kryptonite or whatever, something like that. But the interesting aspect of both that and, of course, the more substantive historical version you're doing is you actually need to know a lot about the events at that time to gauge whether something could have gone.
Who's the person with the long hair? That's Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin didn't write The Network State. Curtis Yarvin wrote a very influential blog that was read by a lot of Silicon Valley elite types. And he wrote under the name Mencius Moldbug.
On this direction or that direction.
And yes, he's also explicitly a fascist. Yes, he's also in the same circle as Balaji Srinivasan. And yes, Rudyard Lynch, aka Whatifalthist, does know him. So they all know each other.
And then even more to develop the alternate scenarios of what it could be, right? Like the Man in the High Castle or something like that. You know, probably the Germans, like the Japanese would have become the global left and the Germans the right, like because the Japanese were backing W.B. Du Bois and all of these third world revolutionaries and so on and so forth. So they would have taken over the world the Soviets did, and of course the Germans would have been the global right. But most people don't think about.
My type 1 diabetes lasted 2 years longer than the Confederate States of America. I was diagnosed in 2020.
Well, I'm glad that that's the case. Fuck the Confederacy. Attack on Pony Productions. Thank you for the $5 super chat. And we're getting closer to our goal all the time, folks. Let's go.
The Japanese as being the global left in that scenario. They just think, you know, they don't realize there'll be like a right-left partition.
Yeah, no, again, it does go without saying, both of these men are incredibly historically illiterate. Despite the fact that, like, Rudyard reads a lot. He reads a lot of books, but he lacks the literacy to actually make anything out of them that is coherent at all. You know? He reads a lot and understands very little.
You know, because they don't have enough historical context. And the reason that I would like to talk to you about this, and because I think we both think about history and macro events. You know that thing that people are saying nowadays? Here's a musing that may or may not.
Can we just like pause? Just the leftist, the leftist imperial Japan with their emperor god king would have emerged. I'm sorry, they would have emerged as leftists in what capacity?
That'd be interesting too. You know, people are saying you can just do things. You've heard that saying?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. Well, all right. So this is a big, I guess, you know, YouTube is its own culture, a little bit different than X. But a lot of tech guys have this saying, you can just do things, meaning you can just launch rockets. You can just build cars. You can just do things. There are no rules. There's no constraints, nothing holding you back. Go, go, go. Right? You know, and Anderson has this line, which is that roughly paraphrases, the world around you is made by people like you, and you can go and reshape it, right?
Just as an FYI, he's quoting Mark Andreessen. Now, I don't know if you guys remember Mark Andreessen, but he's also one of the money guys that is funding all of these network states, all right? And you might better know him as the guy who literally has an egg-shaped head. Has the worst vibes of anyone you've ever seen in your life. This is not photoshopped. This is not at all fucking photoshopped. Mark Andreessen is like the guy behind Andreessen Horowitz. And he is a huge billionaire, and he is also not a very smart man. But all of these guys who are worshiping tech bros and trying to set up like city states where they'd be like god kings, they hang on the words of these dullards, and it's just embarrassing. This would be like quoting one of Jeffrey Epstein's emails, and I mean that like full offense intended, okay? Like, if you've read any of the Epstein files emails where Jeffrey Epstein was writing something, you understand how embarrassing that would be just on its own. But the fact that these people are all part of the Epstein class really kind of, I think, puts the cherry on top here.
There's a truth to that, especially today because of the internet and so much of the existing order is sort of melting down and so on. But there's also an unreality to that because how much agency does one person actually have? How much can they actually shape the world versus how much is it historical forces like great man theory of history versus, the historicist kind of thing? And I'm sure you have a view on that, and I have a view. I'd love to hear your view on that.
So I didn't want to get too woo-woo for this, but the idea...
I didn't want to get too woo-woo for this, but you know what? Let's dive into the deep end here, buddy.
The spirits like to convey the message that you should mentally see me as Gandalf.
God, let's go.
The idea in alchemy is that everyone is a radio tower, and that the world is a competition of competition of different Darwinistic radio towers. And
I am the intellectual equivalent of an assault rifle.
I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for something that stupid. I gotta be honest. I couldn't withstand the assault rifle. Survival of the fittest radio tower is such an insane idea to throw out there. Just, alright. Maybe I can't. These people will go out there and say, like, trans people are invalid, and then in the same breath talk about how everyone is a radio tower, if you really think about it. Like, it's fucking nuts. These are the people who are, aligned hardest against the rights of, like, trans people. And they're fucking jokes.
Constant struggle for whichever one gets to...
Look at, they threw up the wolf packs in the greater Voyageurs ecosystem. It's he's talking about radio towers and they have wolf pack trails on the image. It's so many layers. It's so deep if you think about it. Oh god. This is what I needed tonight. Thank you.
Conquer the others and then evolve to a higher level.
So, but how does alchemy have a concept of radio? You mean
there's no explanation, by the way. There's no explanation. Why did you throw wolf pack movements over yourself talking about radio towers? I mean, like, I can assume it's because you think that the movements of wolf packs is somehow like the movements of radio waves or radio towers, but man, it's really that relationship is non-existent here. We are less than 5 minutes into this. All right, let's go. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out ImogeneOlivia.com because, folks, I'm gonna have to make a few calls to action throughout this video so that I can remind you to please support the show if you're having a good time. Drop those subs and donos if you feel inclined, and let's continue digging into this.
Are you're backporting the concept of a radio tower?
Yes. So
in
good. Alchemical philosophy, everyone is their own thing, and then they emit these sort of vibrations. And an example of the person,
and what did they call them? They didn't call them radio towers.
No, radio tower is a modern term.
Oh god, I love and hate these because it's the dumbest people you've ever seen in your life communicating to each other, and it's like, so radio towers are an alchemist thing? And he's just like, well, no, they didn't have radio towers back then. And it's just like, God, you're both adult men. You are both adults. How did this happen? Who failed you so spectacularly? Chris Huggins, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Very much appreciated. Let's go. I'm gonna need this to cover the medical bills for the brain damage I'm about to do to myself. Oof.
The original language this was written in was first Egyptian and then Greek, and then it was Arab, and then it was Latin. But they use vibration. They say that the universe, the example of the figure who probably released the most is Jesus Christ. This single figure developed a religious worldview, said,
Ah, yes, Jesus Christ, the original vibrator. Oh, God. Craig Hornick, I just read ahead. Holy moly. Oh, I just read your comment. It's so good. Oh, holy moly. All right, thank you for the $5 super chat.
Inside you are two wolves, one has its ham radio license and the other cameos as background McPoyle on It's Always Sunny.
That explains the cross. He was a radio antenna.
religious worldview changed the course of history through working its way into the minds and souls of billions of people. And so the idea there is that the universe is all of these different subcompeting forces trying to push for their own dominance. And then the universe is the collective output of all of these independent decisions being made over time, with God being the biggest one. And that's how I see the force of human history, where it is the emergent phenomena of billions of people operating at once, making their own decisions out of.
Yes, that is literally what history is, Rudyard. Thank you. Yes, history is the story we tell that emerges out of billions of human beings doing things. That is history. But why are you adding all of the other nonsense? Okay, all right.
Free will. And then you have multiple tiers to it where nations make choices, individuals make choices, and through that it forms. And there's...
I don't mean to be woo-woo, proceeds to vomit the entire plot of Neon Genesis Evangelion as if it's like one-to-one Earth history.
It's interesting where to understand the world, you really have to look at dualities where nature nurture. Yeah. It's both. It's obviously both if you're a reasonable person. And if you go too much towards nature or nurture, which is the argument that we're really having here, you're going to end up in very silly places where the Nazis were pure nurture, where they thought that people who are genetically very close to Germans, like Slavs, were so innately different that they were...
Oh my God. The Nazis? You mean the death cult empire built around the concept of eugenics? We're all about the concept of nurturing? What? What? No! You're just wrong! Oh my God. It's 6 minutes into this video.
Incapable of attaining similar results. And then the modern left are hardcore nurture, where they think at the blank slate that all theories are capable of, basically you can remake human nature in any given direction. And it's a combination of both of them. And I think...
You're right. I apologize, Vaughn 400. I am suppressing his vibrations right now. You're right. I need to allow his vibrations to run free.
The less we think about it in theory and the more we figure out what we can apply, the better. Because as an example, the amount of physical matter that we could control with science is vastly in excess of what we thought we could do 500 years ago. But the way we did that is through realizing science and realizing what we could actually do. And you go back to rain dance.
Yes, you see those primitives before the onset of science. They didn't realize what they could do. They were doing minimal amounts, but science allowed us to do maximum amounts.
Says Rain Dan says if we have the ability to control rain, it'll be through scientific methods that we discover, not through making rain dances. So it's figure out what you can and can't do in each individual context.
They didn't think that they could control rain. That's not what rain dances were asking spirits to move the rain into existence for them. They understood that they couldn't make it rain. And I feel like someone who ask the spirits to convey very important information in the past.
The spirits like to convey the message that you should mentally see me as Gandalf.
Maybe you'd understand that.
Interesting. I've got 3 or 4 quick reaction sets. So first, I wouldn't exactly call great man versus force of history quite the same as nature nurture, but to react to that, they're both useful lenses. But just to react to that, nature nurture, the way I think about that is hardware software. Like you have individuals.
I like that this guy is acting as if everything that Rudyard said made sense and wasn't just absolutely batshit insane.
And then you have the ideologies above them. And actually the relationship to what you're saying is the software that people are emanating, for example, a religion or a political movement, right? Christianity, communism, something like that, can actually take large pieces of hardware and organize them towards a goal, right?
Yes. Ideas, the original software. You're right.
Whereas something like, ultra-nationalism of the ethnic variety is starting with like a fixed hardware pool of only this ethnic group. And the software is almost the most trivial software of just like, okay, all of us against everybody else or what have you, right? And actually what that suggests is that, and this is something I plan to write up, is actually neither the left nor the right understand the left. You know why I say that? As much as you and I think about this stuff.
Go ahead.
So the left perceives itself as sharing and caring, and the right typically, maybe not you, but the typical rightist perceives the left as naive and wimpy and not like them who are big and strong. And I actually think of the left as just optimized for war. And the reason I think of it that way is
I genuinely don't know how they got here from history is the spiritual alchemy vibes of the universe. But okay.
Like amidst the chaos of the French Revolution, amidst the chaos of the Soviet Revolution, this leftist software based on sharing and caring somehow managed to organize, Napoleon obviously was the one who built the Grand Armée, but like with the Soviet Union, it built the Red Army, right? What it did is it flattened out this giant amount of hardware and it organized it into a group of people that could go and fight. And you could argue, even during the French Revolution, that at the time, today people think of nationalism as this, I'm a tough.
Chris Huggins, thank you for the $10
now
super
after
chat.
however many minutes we've been watching.
We aren't even in double-digit minutes. We just cleared the 9-minute mark. I know it feels like we've been watching for days, maybe even weeks, but we just cleared 9 minutes. Also, and I feel like a fool having to say this, the sharing and caring mentality is always going to trump whatever the right is coming up with, because sharing and caring, if we're going to simplify it down to that, is the reason our species is successful. Like, you don't get civilization without people sharing and giving a fuck. Like, that's how civilization works, man.
Rightist, kind of thing. But back then, as you're aware, nationalism was actually on the left, because it was on the left relative to the tribalism of just a local town or village, right? The illusion of being French, of all speaking the same language, we're all in this together, right? That was actually something that was a unifying force, where with software, you could unify a lot of hardware. And the reason I say this is I think rightists don't think enough about why the left often wins. And it's often better at military force, which is something that the right
software.
Dwiffo, thank you very much for subscribing with Prime. Appreciate it. Thank you so goddamn much. Oh, God. All right.
Polarizes. And I'd give another analogy, which is, you're younger than I am, but how much do you know about early Google?
Not that much.
Okay, so early Google, one of their core innovations was, now they're a little different, but back then, one of their core innovations was taking cheap commodity hardware and then running sophisticated software on top of it, right? As opposed to their competitors who at the time were buying top of the line Sun Microsystems hardware, right? And then, Google said, hey, it's much easier for us to acquire huge stacks of cheapo hardware and then run this sophisticated software on top that could coordinate it towards a common goal, allowing for fault tolerance, allowing for some of these machines to not even work, allowing for some of them to produce the wrong results, allowing for, the kinds.
That's actually a really important question, WPG Squirrel. And the answer is billionaires love yes men. Or more specifically, they don't love yes men. They love people who are yes men that intellectualize the yes. Does that make sense? Like, this guy spouts a ton of absolute dipshittery. Absolute, craziness. But it's craziness that synergizes and agrees with what billionaires want to be true. And so they just throw money at it. And this guy, he's deep in the sauce. He already believes all his own bullshit. So he's going to throw his money in there. He's going to get Peter Thiel to throw his money in there. Mark Andreessen's going to throw his money in. And then they're going to get together with their other intellectual friends Whatifalthist and Curtis Yarvin and a bunch of these other folks. And they're all going to try and do a fascism together. And it doesn't matter that they're fucking idiots, because fascism is stupid. Fascism is a stupid ideology that relies on stupid people to carry it out. So this in effect is actually an asset for a billionaire. If you can get a bunch of people on board with this bullshit, then basically you're almost done doing the fascism.
Things that happen in your computer, for example, let's say your computer has an issue every 4 years, something like that. That might be roughly right. Okay. So that's, if you multiply times 4 times 365, that's roughly every 1,500 days or so, right? Or, 2,200 days, something like that. So if you have 2,000 servers in a rack, you're going to get an incident like that every day. So anyway, point is, certain kinds of ideologies, especially leftist ideologies, you can almost think of it as software that's built to mask.
Yeah, it's like ChatGPT, but, wearing glasses. Yeah. This is the kind of rhetoric from, pseudo-scientific minds that will drive people fucking insane and to their deaths.
Scale. So communism, open borders, right? A lot of these crazy concepts, you can think of them as software that scripts giant numbers of human beings. Let me pause there and get your thoughts.
So, yes, that's a very good idea. And the idea of yours that's influenced me the most is 19th century God, 20th century state, 21st century network. And the left was very optimized for the 20th century state system due to...
Again, the left, there is no the left on a global scale. There's no the left, there's no, well, there might be a the right on a global scale, that being the interests of billionaires is aligned across state lines, You already have globalized firms and companies that operate on every continent and almost every country, That has already kind of happened, but there's not a global leftist movement, It'd be cool if there were, we got nothing to lose but our chains and all that, but that doesn't exist right now. Outside of the solidarity we can express across, the borders.
The left provides the incentive structures most easily for standardization, where you look at the left and the left believes things that are demonstratively false, but they're very good for large group cooperation. The left is the ultimate belief structure for standardized group cooperation, which is why you see this massive sociological shift from world...
Oh, Ava Nemini, I got my eye on it, but it hasn't said anything worth responding to yet, so...
War I to World War II, because the God-based social structures of World War I could not survive until World War II, where every major country had to develop ideologies based off standardization. And Nazism in a lot of ways is closer to leftism than it is to traditional conservatives or libertarians, because Nazism is standardized ideology. Communism is, and one of the things James Burnham covers very well in his book on the managerial revolution, is he said that New Dealism is an ideology. And you look at the modern American left, it's a continuation of the New Deal over the course of a century, forming a new cohesive ideology. The problem, though, is the New Deal was based upon strategic alliances that Democrats had a century ago, and there was no underlying philosophy or moral structure. It was whatever groups happened to vote Democrat. And
no, there was a unifying structure. It's just that over the past century, conservatives, i.e., capitalists, destroyed the unions and destroyed worker solidarity and destroyed worker power systematically and slowly. That's all it took. It was just the shattering of the worker movement in the United States.
So we saw that strategy of pandering to whatever groups were strategically useful that doesn't have a coherent thing behind it.
Yes. So taking the God-state network concept. So for those, this is from the Network State book, and you're referencing it. I'll very briefly summarize it for the viewers who haven't seen that before. But it's essentially the idea that what is the most powerful force in the world, right? Is it Almighty God? Is it the U.S. military? Or is it encryption? And this seems like a very abstract thing, but as you're aware, and as I think about a lot, it actually influences almost every action someone takes on a daily basis. Right, the way that people interact with the world, it's like this analogy I use in the book, like a kid who tells another kid on a playground, like, my dad can beat up your dad.
Also, I don't know, I don't think Balaji Srinivasan has ever seen kids fight on a playground, but this isn't how they fight on a playground. Usually they just get confused, or one of them gets hurt feelings and cries, or they just wind up walking away from each other. Most fights on a playground aren't, we're going to physically assault each other.
They believe that their God, their state, their network is the strongest, and almost like the Bin Laden concept of gravitating towards a strong horse, what they believe is the strongest, they'll gravitate towards, And so that could be, in the 20th century, it was the Soviet military or the US military, right? Or it could be Christianity versus Islam or something like that, right? These are important things that actually are upstream of all other social organization. Okay, so now we have Bitcoin, we have social networks, we have a new paradigm for how to organize people.
Finally, Bitcoin, creating a new paradigm with how to organize people. Yeah, it's definitely not just a speculative asset that people are using to shield their wealth. No. It's a revolutionary new technology.
And what we've just seen is that the network has defeated the state in the West. But
lies when I was a kid. I didn't say they never turned into physical fights. I'm just saying most disagreements on a playground aren't, we're gonna beat each other up. Your dad's gonna beat up my dad. Most arguments are not that. Most arguments are not throwing a punch. Most of the time, it's just hurt feelings. And I know this because I worked at a summer camp for 2 years.
The state has defeated the network in the East. Let me go ahead. I want your reaction to that, and I can talk about that.
Oh, no, there's just an idea that I had that the social organizing principle of the faith of God is faith, because that's how you get people to cooperate under religion. The socializing principle, or the unifying principle of the state, is standardization, which is why the school system is designed. And I don't know if this is true, but it's an idea I'm using, that the unifying principle of the network is willpower, because the way the network...
Oh, a triumph of the will? This is aging me in real time. I know it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but this is why I'm tired.
Network works is it's water, and it's constantly porous, and it's constantly mixing and breaking apart, and there aren't that many standardized principles. And so in a battlefield that's constantly mobile, where there is no strong geographic boundaries because you can jump across the internet immediately, is the unifying principle is whatever group has the will to stay together, the will to survive, and the will to keep going, because willpower...
The will to power, if you will?
is the force that works against entropy. And you look at the left, the reason that the left won the early stage of the internet, where wokeness is a child of the first step of the internet, is the wokies just had the most will of any demographic.
That's interesting. So it's funny. I was not going to predict that your word that you were going to use there was will. I would have said, but I want to react to it because it's actually interesting. I would have said,
just in case you guys are missing the reference here, a will to power is a reference to two things. One, Friedrich Nietzsche. Two, the Nazis who appropriated it for, the Nazi war machine and to bolster their idea of an Aryan master race. I wonder where Rudyard got that idea.
That God was about scripture and the state was about law and the network's about code, like focusing on the written thing. And the priest would tell you what scripture meant, and the bureaucrat or the lawyer would tell you what...
Oh God, we're getting so close to fucking Warhammer 40K. We're getting so fucking close to it, I can feel it in my bones.
...law meant, and the engineer would shape the code, right? That's how I think about it, the level of the written kind of thing that structures each era, But your concept, the willpower thing is...
I used to think that Warhammer 40K was a little too heavy-handed, but then you have guys like this just straight up explaining how, the fucking
basement guy definitely at lead paint chips as a child. Ugh, I'm dyslexic. Forgive my spelling if it is wrong.
Oh, it's okay. Chris Huggins, thank you for the $10 super chat. Just absolutely championing the stream tonight. Thank you so goddamn much. And yeah, this guy just re-explained the Adeptus Mechanicus in real time unintentionally because he's just that fascistic. God, Alchemy, thank you for subscribing as well. We are now up to 221. We're getting close to halfway there, and then I can tell you what you're going to unlock. I'm excited.
Actually super interesting because it relates to, again, the tech guy concept of agency, and you can just do things that we talked about earlier, right? And the great man theory. And I want to connect that to your...
Unironically, Nindreen, I feel like these guys in Silicon Valley are genuinely one bad week away from unironically talking about how ChatGPT is a manifestation of the machine spirit, and we need to get tech priests in order to interpret it. I feel like genuinely the way things are going, give Silicon Valley one bad economic crash and they're all going to be talking like that, It's going to be nuts. Finally found my old Amazon login so I can cancel my Prime, but it's not going out without me spending some Bezos money. Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much, Alchemy. And best of luck outside of the Amazon ecosystem.
Your radio tower thing from earlier. I actually really like that radio tower visual, even if it's a backport. Also,
a commenter, I live in Silicon Valley and assure you, you're being far too optimistic. Oh, are they already there? That wouldn't surprise me either, I guess.
Vibration.
Just as an FYI, we've been going for almost an hour now. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and also please consider supporting the stream if you are at all able, because you guys make this show possible. But we are an hour in, and we've gotten through less than 17 minutes of this. As an FYI, we are not very far into it.
This is what people are calling vibes these days, right? Because it's actually a deep analogy. So, I actually...
Oh, no.
Never understood why people like Rudyard write such painfully long diatribes when their position could be accurately summed up in somewhere between 13 and 15 words.
Leftists won the first stages of the internet. I remember seeing Mr. Hands or Lemon Party and thinking, yes, this is the promise of collectivism.
It's true. One of our mods, Ashley J. Curtis, literally helped invent the internet. Was arguably the first person to ever send a file across the internet. And it was a huge, huge thing. There was so much promise in the internet. There's still a lot of promise in the goddamn internet. But these chuckle fucks are absolutely committed to destroying that promise. It's infuriating.
As a far-left Warhammer 40k nerd, the shout-out was absolutely appreciated. I want to make content like you one day, Jack. You inspire me.
Hell yeah. Look, all the inspiration you need, watch one, Tim Pool clip. Watch one Tim Pool clip. And in your heart of hearts, think to yourself, could I make smarter, better, more engaging, and more informative content than Tim Pool? Almost all of you, I know, without even any kind of thought process, that you could. Okay? His Dark Angel, you absolutely could do what I do. All it takes is persistence. Okay? I have to work in 4 hours instead of sleeping. I'm taking psych damage from these dweebs. I'm so sorry, young to the Huimang. Also, first paycheck of the new yob, and I'll give you half jack, pinky swear. Well, Nindreen, I very much appreciate that in advance. My cats make better content than Tim Pool. Unironically, that's probably true. On a good note, tons of data centers have been canceled due to local pushback. That's great. That's one of the reasons you guys need to get involved in your local political scene. Also, just as an FYI, you can stop concentration camps being built in your backyard by becoming more active in your local political scene, which is pretty cool. Tim Pool is the king? Man, get that dick out of your mouth. Imagine standing for Tim Pool. Can you imagine debasing yourself like that? Like, just tell me you want, like, a lady to crush your ball sack under her boot. Like, just, like, be honest about yourself, okay?
Some of my original training was in electrical engineering, fields and waves specifically. And the thing about waves is they can interfere what's called constructively or destructively. Like, for example, if you have two waves and they both have a peak at the same time, you get a super peak. But if one is a peak and there is a trough, they cancel out like this, right? And that is true if you have ocean waves as well. If you have like a ripple like this and a ripple like this and another like this that are all coming from, northeast, southwest, what have you, you can have a huge thing in the middle or a huge trough on the other side, right? So you have these radio trans.
Okay, I will say, just to be here, look, if I ever become an eccentric rich guy, I'll hire a dominatrix just to talk to me about her job while I eat a pastrami sandwich. Unironically, dominatrixes almost always have the best tea. All right? They almost always have, like, the best tea. They know every fucking thing about their piggies. All right?
In your mental model that are putting out these vibes. And today, we would call them influencers, like you and me. And we're putting out this content, and it's traveling, and the actual, the material there is not water. It's not air. It's not the electromagnetic spectrum, or it is, but it is.
Oh, man. Sorry. The laughter break provided me a cushion of sanity before it really fully hit me what he was talking about. He's just conveying the idea that we can hear sounds and, like, take those sounds and turn them into ideas, which is pretty cool. But, like, you don't have to turn it into, like, a spiritual thing. It's just it's biology. It's how we've figured out to communicate with each other, and that's pretty cool and interesting. But stop degrading it by turning it into, like, this weird spiritual vibe force. Literally vibes-based politics.
It is the social network, right, on which you can visualize a bunch of nodes, and you see an idea pop up at one big radio transmitter that's got 100,000.
You don't have to talk about the social network as if you invented the idea of people talking to each other, bro. As if Twitter invented the idea of people talking to each other. Good God.
1,000 or a million or whatever, and then it propagates out, and then you see its evolutionary fitness as it goes further. And this, of course, relates to the concepts of, like,
that doesn't make any sense in the context of talking about ideas. Good golly.
A mind virus, right? Which, transmits out. It's actually...
We're just fully committing to calling ideas mind viruses now, aren't we? It's so stupid. It's just an idea. It's not a virus. None of these words mean what he thinks they mean.
You know, an interesting thing from genetics, very counterintuitive thing from genetics, is that humans are actually the result of these sort of waves of genes. Do you know what I mean by that?
Explain it, please.
So I'll find some graphics of this, but there are certain kinds of alleles, for example, lactose tolerance, that are just like the vibes in your example. They're so...
Man, we're literally doing vibes-based eugenics. It's wow, it's fucking crazy. It's vibes-based eugenics. That's what's happening here. The Finn Rainbow, thank you for the $2 super chat. They are just saying shit, but I almost guarantee you they're sober.
Evolutionary advantages that they radiate out rapidly from their original, because the non-obvious concept is alleles can travel independently of the overall system of all the other genes they're linked to if they're advantageous enough. Like the lactose tolerant guy just has so many kids that it spreads out farther than other genes for just that aren't that advantageous that are local.
This wasn't where I was expecting this conversation to go, but another principle in alchemy is that consciousness, the relationship between the ideal and consciousness and between the material is sexual, like that between men and women. So consciousness, so the ideas have to merge with the material. And the more advanced you get, the more your mind and your consciousness affects the rest of the world. And so the idea is that consciousness and ideas are woven into life itself. And an example of that would be a religion affecting material things, ideas. And so the idea there is that free will is a built-in part of the universe, which controls material stuff. And physics is one of the fields I've studied the least. But I know a huge issue they've stumbled in with physics is that they can't predict the movement of particles, where it's not atom to atom movement. It's almost as if the atoms are making decisions in real time about what they want to do.
Yeah. And, you know, actually the way I call...
My understanding is they understand atomic movement pretty well. Don't understand the movement of smaller quantum particles. That's much, much harder. But also, like, it's funny how the host is trying to sane wash this shit with scientific sounding fascism. I mean, yeah, essentially what they're doing is like getting together and brainstorming a new type of like Nazi esotericism. You know, I've talked about Nazi esotericism before quite a bit with relation to Whatifalthist. And I think that what is happening here is Balaji Srinivasan is desperately trying to sane wash and techno-babble his way to like a socially acceptable form of Nazi esotericism that can like fly in American society. I think that's what's happening here, but I gotta be honest, this conversation is like, what if the two dumbest stoners you know were having a conversation at 2:00 in the morning, except that their ideas are literally being funded by billionaires?
All that is, my version of that is ideology becomes biology. Right?
Exactly.
So essentially, you know, like there's this graphic I have, we'll put it on screen, but it shows...
Do I need to break out the models I've worked on to simulate the inside of a nuclear reactor? like it's just absolute insanity here, right?
Democrats, do you know what, I'll just ask you as a guest, maybe you know this. Do you know what fraction of Democrats nowadays, in one study at least, marry Republicans?
I'm going to guess like 15%.
It's even less than that. It's 4%.
That's amazing.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to marry these absolute charming individuals? Who wouldn't want to marry someone who's talking about human beings as radio towers?
It's amazing, right? Yeah, here, look at this. I'm going to show you this.
It's not that amazing. Like, MAGA ideology and Republican ideology is fucking odious to the extreme. It's like asking, do you want to marry that guy who routinely shits himself in the pants? Like, no, not really. You know, might be like a normal guy who really likes sports, but I don't want to marry the guy who deliberately shits himself in public. It's not even like a condition that he suffers from. He just shits himself in public because he likes to do it. Like, yeah, we don't want to marry like the guys who are shitting themselves on purpose in front of everybody. It's not a sexy look.
It's actually crazy. Marriages between Democrats and Republicans are extremely rare, right? Do you see this one? Between Democrats and Republicans.
This is Sunni Shia.
Exactly. And this was 2020, right? So this is something which suggests that when people say like America is becoming...
It's not like Sunni Shia at all. Those are two different religions. Those, like, it's more akin to like Protestant and Catholic. If you're going to take it into the realm of like religion, Sunni Shia is like Protestant Catholic. This is different because we're talking about the beliefs and values, not tangled up with like some deity or some religious belief system. Instead, we're talking about beliefs about material reality and how we should treat one another here and now.
Tribal. It's actually not one country, it's two parties.
Yes.
If you look at the I've talked about this before on X, but this is actually why the Republican, tough nationalist view, in my view, also breaks down. So you see this visual?
Yeah, I've seen this one before.
You've seen this one before, that's right. So, and here is, by the way, the map of genetic frequencies. Let me show you this too. So now the thing is, that's weird, right? It's like the lactase persistence is much bigger in like or lactase tolerance, we might call it, in Northwest Europe, but it's actually also here in
biology, which is why the people must seize the mitochondria. The powerhouse of the cell is the power of the people.
That's right. We have nothing to lose but the chains on our mitochondrias. Together we shall pool the strength of our chondrias together and become the mightiest chondria of them all. Craig Hornick, thank you for the $5 super chat. I gotta be completely honest with you though, I have no idea how they are relating genetic markers for lactose intolerance to Republicans and Democrats.
Like Western Africa and here and so on and so forth, right? But less so down over here. Like one guy had this mutation in one region and then it radiated out from there and then humans moved around the world and so on. So it's similar. And the reason that's cool to me is it actually shows that, remember our software versus hardware, nature versus, like in a sense, in a non-obvious sense, hardware is also a combination of these standing waves, but on a longer time scale.
Yes, and this leads me back to another alchemy point, that the purpose of alchemy is that...
Now we're back on alchemy. God, why? Why? How does this help us understand anything?
I swear these men need help. Like, please, they are creating a literal mind virus that never existed before.
It turns out Republicans were right about lab leak theory, just not the kind of leak they were thinking of. That may have been a dick joke. Don't think about it too hard.
You try to figure out how the world works, then you gain mastery of it. You figure out its underlying principle, then you could control it physically, then you use that physical control to improve yourself, then you figure out something new and you repeat. And so this is why
it's basically like science. It's like science. It just does. Yeah.
Every single inventor of early science also studied alchemy. A third of Isaac Newton's books were on alchemy, and a majority of Newton's laws of motion stem back to alchemical principles. Same thing with Giordano Bruno, same thing with Galileo. We have theories about, because alchemy has the transmutation of forms, which is through the facing of suffering. Through suffering, you burn away weakness, then you can improve your form, which sounds a lot like Darwinistic evolution. So this was a consistent theme in Western history that's bubbled up under the surface.
That's not useful for scientific inquiry, though. Just alchemists were good at documenting what they did, which is useful for learning how to do other things. But this idea of trying to retroactively describe what they were doing as Darwinistic evolution of knowledge, that's not at all how any of those things work.
And so...
So I want to ask you something on this because I haven't actually looked this up. It's interesting. I knew that a lot of these early guys were interested in alchemy, but were they in part motivated by the famous transmutation of lead into gold? Was this the thing that got them into it, and then they figured out science, or was that just kind of
so cruel to make us watch this? I know, but also it's some low-hanging fruit, and I needed this today. And also, this guy is literally trying to make fascist city-states a thing. So I figure we should talk about him a little bit from time to time.
of a background thing?
This is one of those things where it's difficult to say, because alchemy works through coded formula. And so the reason I said the water...
Through coded formula? Like ChatGPT? Oh!
Gonna be my last donation for the night. It's wild listening to this while I homebrew the Transmuter Wizard subclass for D&D.
What a thematically appropriate activity, the Finn Rainbow. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Very much appreciated. And good luck with your D&D. I hope I get to play D&D again soon. It's been too long.
Comment at the beginning is that one of the symbols is water, and water is constant fluidity. And the way you work through that is through drive, because if something's constantly fluid, you have to make it your will to go through. And so
that's right. You have to have the will to go through that fluid.
The real complication and the reason why this stuff hasn't caught on is it's all these esoteric, weird symbols that are purposely
the will to swallow.
Weird, because the idea is that only people who are wise enough to understand what this means deserve the knowledge. And so it's this complication where we don't know. I've heard some authors, and what I've read from most authors in this field, is that gold is symbolic for perfection. And they were doing this as a sort of philosophic shit test. And also because alchemy was founded by the Catholic Church, and it was very popular.
So this guy with the goatee and a beard thing, is he in a bunker or some shit? I don't really know where he lives, and I don't really care. I will say that I think he's very stupid, and yet he remains relatively influential in YouTube conservative spaces. He has almost, I think, over 700,000 subscribers on YouTube, this guy. And he makes the absolutely most bat-shittiest videos I've ever seen. This is mostly a joke, my bad. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not pick up what you were putting down. That's my bad.
In every major court in Europe funded alchemy, but also this is a heavily Christian society where they didn't want to openly say this is a different philosophic tract. So they were using gold as symbolism for attaining spiritual perfection. And the idea of transmutation.
Also, unrelated, on my main screen right here, I have just had this image of Mark Andreessen staring at me, and it's very unnerving. I'm going to exit out of it, but I thought I'd show it on screen one last time.
Of forms is that once you have attained a high enough level of mental development,
Can I offer you an egg in this trying time?
You will have the ability to turn any material thing into any other material thing. And I think that's a philosophic projection of what they thought humanity would attain thousands of years in the future. But also, people actually believed that you'd make gold. It's one of these complex things where there was a spiritual understanding, then people took it seriously. And one of my issues with this topic, and I don't want to completely gas it up, is you wonder, because it's so highly complex and it's so long, how many of the people involved were just not good faith players, or they were making stuff up? And how many...
I mean, like, some people, I'm sure, genuinely believed that and pursued it. And other people took it more metaphorically. Almost kind of like Christianity, huh? Almost like a lot of religious beliefs. It was kind of its own little thing.
Many people were saying, we can make gold, yes, King of France, so give me money to study this. We're definitely going to get you gold.
Yes, but obviously some of them were also the originators of real science. They were some of the best scientists out there, right? So do you know what this reminds me of? Maybe there's an obvious analogy. Crypto.
I am very proud of the mental horsepower you have.
I needed a moment. I just needed a moment Yeah, crypto. We're turning it into gold.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
and here's
that.
why.
Continue.
Okay, so many different mappings. Well, first is obviously Bitcoin is turning bits into gold, digital gold, number one. Number two, now it's actually doing it though, in the sense of there's a creation of huge appreciation in value that was not there with Alchemy in that, like in the ultimate input output sense, Bitcoin is working in a way that the lead to gold thing of Alchemy wasn't. However, other aspects of what you're saying, crypto has both, in my view, very, very, very intelligent people and also crazy scammers. And it's basically like a U-shaped distribution on every aspect of it. Like you have these extremely capable cryptographers and distributed computing. Like the thing wouldn't work without them. But you've also got like the most...
Coder Joe, thank you for the 2 gifted tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. And guys, we are 20 subs away from revealing what our sub goal is going to be. That's very exciting.
Base motivations and everything in between or whatever, right? But actually less in between. Like it's very U-shaped, kind of distribution. Less so every day, but it's still U-shaped. Crypto also appeals, and maybe this is an aspect, I'm not sure if the analogy carries, to the power user and the powerless.
Yes.
So basically, who's into crypto? It's like the people who want to push the limits of what a bank account even is, and the people who just barely want to hold on to a bank account. And so the first group are like the tech guys who are like, I want to send millions of dollars to Japan in 10 seconds with these guarantees and so on. And why would you want that? For example, my friend, Brian Armstrong, now the CEO of Coinbase, started as an engineer at Airbnb and collecting money from like Argentina and Mexico and Egypt for all of these stays was actually a non-trivial thing that required hundreds of bank accounts in different countries and all of this Forex risk. And it was large amounts of money it was essentially something where Airbnb exposed to him how badly the thing that we thought worked, the international payment system, really didn't work. To pool all of that into revenue for Airbnb meant that their backend for managing money and Forex was actually very, very, very important to the business, much more so than people think, right? Because like, let's say you've got $1,000 transaction and you have a 1% fluctuation in Forex, you can lose like a lot of it in a day, right? 5% in a day.
I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest. I don't think either of them are talking to each other in a way that they are not communicating anything to each other right now. Like they are just talking directly past one another, and it's funny, but it's also really pathetic. Like just absolutely gone, this guy.
Whatever. On the other side, the powerless are those who are just trying to hang on to a bank account. Now, what's funny is lots of Westerners who used to think this wasn't a big deal just got unbanked, right? And so lots of or conversely, Westerners who didn't see what the point is of, being a power user are like, actually, it would be cool.
The fact that Balaji Srinivasan's entire thing is, what if we tried to do historical analysis extraordinarily poorly, but we hid that by using modern-day buzzwords to describe modern-day Silicon Valley buzzwords to describe activities in the past. And it's really transparently stupid. Their radio waves are bouncing off the steel doors guarding the psych ward they belong to. Yeah, exactly. Their radio towers aren't reaching us.
Because I'm now on the internet to be able to pay these 15 people around the world as contractors or something like that, right? So anyway, I'm wondering if that U-shaped aspect, did Alchemy appeal to the top and the bottom and not the middle, or is that not something that extends?
So Alchemy was seen as an upper... Yes, you're right, where alchemy was seen either as an upper class profession or by kooks, where alchemy was called the magic of kings. Where Christianity was the magic of priests. And if you wanna pull away the trappings of this and like the language involved, what the magic of priests means for traditional religions is that this is a social technology that exists to increase group cooperation. So Islam...
Yes, but the magic of kings...
Hey, fun fact, in case any of you want to get really mad about the fact the United States doesn't tax the rich. This guy's worth $150 million. This guy, with all of his brilliant ideas, is worth $150 million minimum. He might be worth as much as $300 million. He was one of the chief technology officers at Coinbase, and then has just continued to like work in crypto and, you know, crypto adjacent venture capital. Anyway, just so you know, the entirety of our society bends to the whims of people who have the amount of wealth he has. Proof meritocracy is a myth? Exactly.
Kings.
Power.
Yeah, go.
The purpose of traditional religion was to increase in-group cooperation. The purpose of alchemy was to increase power. And you can choose to use the power for good or evil. And that's how science is. Science is an amoral tool. And it was called the magic of kings because it was seen as the sort of thing where if you're in a position of very heavy responsibility, that you have to study this sort of thing in order to manage power responsibly, because you have to operate. The higher your range of power is, the more amoral and the more twisted the discussions of your life. The response.
That's right. I would, you know, there is a universe where you could sit down, listen to what these guys say, and just make like the most batshit insane RPG that's ever been developed. I don't recommend doing it because you wouldn't survive. You know, your work would have to be carried on by several other indie devs who would also drop dead on the path to getting that game out the door. But yeah, this is insane. As your power increases, so does the number of hearts you receive at the end of every battle.
Responsibilities you have to take on. This is a bit of a tangent.
As you progress your level, you must take on more responsibilities and make hard choices. And don't worry, they will remember that.
But I love it. There's a fantasy novel one of my favorite ever, called The Grace of Kings. And the conceit of the book and the final part is that there's a civil war and they make a treaty between the two factions that were former friends. One of the factions backstabbed the other guy, wipes out his faction, and he said, "What?"
I do have to say, immediately after saying that, him bringing up a fantasy novel he read, it's breaking me a little bit, you know? It's breaking me a little bit.
What I did was objectively morally wrong, but I saved our continent from centuries of wars in the future. And that's the quandaries you get with power. And then you also get the kooks, or the guys who are hanging out in the medieval equivalent of basements, trying to figure out how to make this technology work. Where it is similar, and another thing that's comparable between crypto and alchemy, is that it's an international network, where alchemy was seen as an international brotherhood of people who are trying to attain the highest level of power, operating irrespective of...
I'm really sorry. I'm going to back it up slightly here.
Where it is similar, and another thing that's comparable between crypto and alchemy, is that it's an international network, where alchemy was seen as an international brotherhood.
Yes. People working on large-scale projects work across arbitrary lines on a map in order to achieve their goals. Yeah. Guess what? There were also international guilds. I guess international guilds in Europe are exactly the same as international corporations. They're the same. They're the same!
Of people who are trying to attain the highest level of power.
God, no, guys, you're saying they've watched too much Full Metal Alchemist. I see the comments, but I gotta tell you guys, if they had watched Full Metal Alchemist, this would be a lot more entertaining. All right?
Power, operating irrespective of governments, and that if there was a government that was trying to block it, you could rely on people who were also involved in this in other countries who could help you out, because the goal of furthering this was greater than any individual national or even religious agenda, where you had contact between...
Like, so much... Yeah, exactly. Madbox NC. Bro just figured out people with similar interests talk about it with each other. And it's just like, this entire thing has been... Did you know? People sometimes cooperate for a common cause, and they cooperate by communicating. Communicating is done with your mouth, creating vibrations in the air that are received by bones in the other person's ears that then vibrate and communicate information to their brains. That is exactly like talking to someone on a telephone. A telephone receives vibrations through the air and then vibrates into your ears, which your ears then vibrate and bring a message to your brain, creating an idea. And it's just like, it's like they're discovering technology that we've had for 100 years for the very first time. Write that down and make a million smackers. When you think about it, are we not all radios to God?
The Muslim and the Christian, and between the pagan and all
your mouth is like the speakers on your computer brain.
those different societies.
Super interesting, because Alchemy was the original Society of Tech Bros.
I'm dying. I'm dying right now. I'm dying. Yeah, we're all just gonna collectively, without any explanation, load our pockets up with rocks and walk into the ocean after this. Oh God, this hurts so badly. Look, guys, this is the state of our enemies. All right, this is where we are when it comes to who are the fascists trying to oppress us. How smart are they really? And the answer is not smart at all. They're absolute mentally...
I stay a member because of your organizing and calls to action, but it's nights like this that test me.
Fair. Fair, Spot Dogs. Thank you for the $5 super chat and for continuing to be a member after nights like tonight. But like, this is the state of what we're up against here in America. When I say we need to like organize to beat these bastards every single day on the show, when I say that, what I mean is like, it doesn't take that much effort to like get on a stage and point at these guys and go, they're fucking weird and stupid and we shouldn't listen to them. Because they're weird and stupid and we shouldn't listen to them. Like, if you listen to them talk, if you approach this with an open mind and you are listening to this for the first time, no preconceived notions whatsoever, the only fair conclusion would be to, arrive at that they're morons. They're mentally, like, just absolutely decimated. They are incapable of rising above their station. There's some real fucking damage here that they need to spend like the next 10 years going to therapy to address. This is not sustainable. None of their ideas are correct or sustainable or even really that interesting. They're boring, they're weird, they're deeply off-putting, and they're incorrect as they try to lead us all off a cliff. And so it doesn't take that much effort to organize and beat these clowns. Because every fascist is like this. Every single fucking one of them. So, what I'm asking you to do, guys, in the middle of this is organize. Go join your local Dems. Go join your local DSA. Jump into our Discord. Reach out to GamerG for help getting involved in DSA. Reach out to Dragonfly for help getting involved with your local Dems. We can help you do that, but we need more people to show up on the local level to stop cooperation with ICE, to stop concentration camps being built in your town, to stop, these AI power plants and AI data centers from being built. You gotta organize to stop this shit, because no one's coming to save us. The National Democrats aren't coming to save us. We need to fucking save ourselves. Alright? Because otherwise, when we don't show up, this is the guy in the room who's telling everyone what to do. So, folks, get to work.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.